Hey, what's up, man? It's Andrew.
Oh my God. How are you doing? Where are you at the moment?
I'm at the Channel 5 offices in LA, just working on some shit. About to go to the Apple store to get my phone fixed.
Nice, nice. What happened to the phone?
Well, I got a new phone and I did an iCloud transfer. It didn't go through, so now I'm just really boring information for you. Just
Yeah,
dated
yeah.
dated stuff.
Oh my God. That's the type of stuff that we're going after on this YouTube channel.
Okay, good. This is about time.
Use
Yep,
updates.
yep. We're getting the hard-hitting questions here. So this is Andrew Callaghan. Oh my God. He's been going crazy.
I would rather die than wear a mask.
Hey, what happened? What happened? What happened? Don't think about germs, bacteria, or other foodborne illnesses. They aren't real. That's bomb, dude. Thanks.
And this is a cool time to be talking to you. You just
Mhm.
released your film, Dear Kelly.
Yep.
Absolutely nuts. Would you want to like just give a little explanation of what the movie is?
Yeah, sure. So, Dear Kelly is about a guy that I met named Kelly J. Patriot, aka Kelly Johnson.
Save the babies! Save the kids! Save my house from Bill Joyner!
And then I met him back at the White Lives Matter rally in Huntington Beach, California in 2021. And it sort of started off as a pretty mundane interview, just like a typical MAGA interview. But he said something midway through the interview about how he lost his home during the Great Recession, and he felt like he got foreclosed on by a predatory lender.
William Joyner, as president of Dove Canyon Holdings, he is a complete financial and legal bully, as he has tried to destroy me and has destroyed me and my family financially and legally in the preparation and submission of knowingly false, misleading, and fraudulent documents in his efforts to steal our home and devastate our family.
Lender, and it kind of gave me a window into how people's lives are before they kind of jump down the conspiracy rabbit hole and what conditions create the ability for that radicalization to happen. And uh, I suspected for a long time that it was, there was a lot of economic drivers behind that. And so I just kind of jumped down the rabbit hole myself in terms of Kelly's backstory, and I spent the next 3.5 years just documenting his family, and getting a glimpse into his life before everything fell apart.
Has Kelly seen the documentary?
Yeah, Kelly, it's really interesting. Like, when I first made the documentary, I was worried that he wouldn't receive it well, obviously, because there's like some scenes that are emotional, and it was filmed over a long period of time. And there's certain scenes where he doesn't look the best, particularly after the intervention. I don't want to spoil it too much, but he's actually been a great sport about the whole thing. I think he's just happy to have this period of his life documented, and Kelly, along with the whole family, have been very supportive of the documentary.
Yeah, you have this way of just sneaking into these different groups. They all accept you the same. It's cool.
Yeah.
Is there any groups that like have not accepted you? Have not?
Not really, but I mean, there's certain groups that I'm like a little bit afraid of even trying to get near, like Scientology. They're pretty scary. Their fair gaming strategy of harassing and, like, basically just stalking people in the church who leave, or like defectors and people who defame them. So they have a very powerful lobby here, legal lobby, and, Screen and Actors Guild lobby here in LA. So I'd probably avoid getting near Scientology.
Other than Scientology, it seems like it's big corporations. Like it seems like you're always just
Constant battle, man. It's because we're actually independent. A lot of people masquerade themselves as anti-corporate. Like, I think Tucker Carlson's his news network slogan is "Corporate media is dead." The mainstream media may have less viewership, but the corporate structures that funded mainstream media have adapted themselves to this new age. They're controlling streamers, they're controlling podcasts, they are manipulating avenues that people believe are independent, but we're actually independent. And that's why they don't fucking like us. And they have no really way to smear the content that we're making, which is frustrating for them. If it's someone like Alex Jones, who's like, getting people hyped up with like paranoia content, then they can run a smear pretty easily. The dream of the media is for me to become a conservative. Anytime I say something remote that could be remotely misinterpreted as being a conservative talking point, they're all over it. So I just have to watch what I say very, very carefully. But yeah, we have a target, but I prefer it that way. Fuck all them. Mhm.
where he's just up against this like barrage of these Antifa protesters. Did
Mhm.
you know you had something there? Because that's the first time you met him, right?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I actually didn't really know I had something in the moment. When you watch the editing that I created, I kind of make it seem like I knew instantaneously because it works to serve the narrative. But I really don't think I like knew that I had the story until I rewatched the footage. There was a little bit of me that was curious about the Bill Joyner home foreclosure situation. But like I said, before I could even ask a follow-up question, he was on the move with four flags in hand, approaching a bloodthirsty army of hostiles. So I just like it was more when I watched the footage over, I was enamored by that particular part of our conversation. But in the moment, it was pretty overstimulating.
And knowing in context through the doc that he's high all the time makes that scene a lot. I don't know if you want to say funnier, but do
Yeah,
you know before his daughter told you that he was high all the time?
I had absolutely no idea because he doesn't talk about it. But I mean, from what she told me, he's been smoking weed like 5 times a day for maybe 50 years. It's just surprising to me because he doesn't have high vibes. If anything, he has kind of like Adderall vibes. But I guess he's always been a weed smoker.
And I mean, back to that White Lives Matter protest. It's strange because I was like rooting for Kelly in that it's like he's kind of like badass. He seems like what everybody wants to be
I'm
like.
glad you felt that way. Yeah, it was pretty badass. You're talking about like him approaching an army of 1,000.
Well, an army of 1,000, and then they're screaming at him, and he's just like, "Keep the faith, bro!" Like,
Yeah,
but then he
that
starts
is
talking
dope
about
stuff.
Kobe, and it's like, "Oh my God, Kelly, stop!" Like
Yeah, it really surprises me that that was the line that got him attacked.
the Kobe line.
Yeah, of all the shit. I mean, I guess we're in Southern California, so it makes sense. But he was saying like so much other shit. But the moment he said Kobe's name, it was just, game on.
And has the family like talked since the documentary to you?
Yeah,
Like,
they were at the premiere a couple days ago.
that's just incredible how you were able to get it. What, you're just a good guy, and they were just like, "This guy seems genuine," and
Yeah, I guess it just these things just happen for me. Just I don't know how to do a lot. Like I can't change a tire, really clean my room, but when it comes to earning documentary trust, I've got the gift of gab, I guess.
it's just by standing there. How you think you've changed up your style interview wise, or
No, it's always kind of been the same, but this is my interview style is just my conversation style. The same way you see me on camera is how I am, in real life with people. Like if I met you, I would just be like that. And it just so happens that when you're agreeable and you don't judge people, that they're ready to talk to you.
you can say whatever you want about Bill Joyner, but he never contacted y'all.
No, honestly, I didn't even know that Bill Joyner existed until I got these cease and desists in the mail. We had a Dear Kelly screening tour, and Bill's lawyer sent cease and desist to every single venue along the tour route. It was like, basically he said that if we screened the movie anywhere, he'd be entitled to millions in damages. And we were trying to tell him like, hey man, you look good in this movie. There's nothing in this movie that makes you look bad. It's more of a explanation of how Kelly scapegoated you to avoid personal responsibility for his own role in the situation. And they just weren't having it, and they're still pursuing the lawsuit to this day. I'm really hoping they drop it, but unfortunately, it doesn't look like they will.
Wow. And good on you for fighting that. Because yeah, it's like it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and some of their terms, bro, were like they said like I don't want to speak too much on it, but it was something like we had to delete all the files that we used to make the movie, all the video and audio files, and we had to give the one and only copy that was remaining to Bill and his lawyer to keep for safekeeping and analysis. I was like, it was a lot going on. There's also things in the lawsuit that make no sense, like one of them being a violation of the Federal Wiretap Act. The lawsuit alleges that we were tapping his phone lines. So it's like I just don't even know how to do that, and I didn't do that. Part of me wonders if the strategy is maybe just to like, allege as much as you can and hope that something sticks. But I don't want to speak too much to it. But shout out to Bill Joyner. Please stop suing me.
Yeah, shout out Bill Joyner. So this is like a crazy documentary. You have a ton of serious themes, radicalization, recovery, forgiveness, but it's kind of been like a through line in a lot of your stuff. There is like this humor that you bring to it.
Hospital. Kyle, there was just a fight in your backyard.
No way. Was it sick?
It was sick.
All right, bet.
Do you feel that that's something like you're towing the line? Or
Well, at the time, yeah, but you got to also think too. When I started filming this movie, I was 22 or 23 years old. I think 23. Yeah, I'm 27 now. So I think that some of the scenes that were obviously shot back in 2021, where I'm like having him reenact a scene and I'm doing more like jokester shit, even the ghillie suit stakeout, like I wouldn't do that today. And that's why it's not just a film about Kelly's development. It's also, you can see my techniques and seriousness evolve throughout the years. Because a lot of people think like, oh, it's because of my own trials and tribulations. Not necessarily. I just think it's an age thing. I mean, I've been doing this for 4 years now. I don't get a lot of gratification out of like, slapstick humor like I used to. So some of these scenes, especially the ghillie suit stakeout, like I would never in a million years do that today. Not because I think it's ethically questionable. It's just I just wouldn't. I'm just sort of past that humor stage.
right. So obviously like the movie ended how it is because that's just life. It's, his story is going to conclude in that way, however it concludes. But when you were making it, was there like an ideal ending in your head?
Yeah, the dream ending would have been Bill Joyner participates in the documentary. We do a family mediation between Bill's family and his family. Kelly engages in therapy, and there's a sort of happily ever after Joyner family, Johnson family coalescence. That would be the dream situation. But Kelly wasn't willing to really change, and Bill wasn't willing to be a part of the documentary or even respond to comment. So that's kind of where we're at.
And what do you think that makes of the documentary? Like,
I mean, I think that the documentary just shows how life more often goes down. It's not Hollywood. It's not a Hollywood ending. There's certain variables that are out of your control. And as a director, you can want things to pan out a certain way, and you could write an outline. But at the end of the day, as a documentarian, you just document life as it happens. I didn't want to be too controlling over the outcome. Like it wasn't my idea to do an intervention. I wouldn't have thought of that to do. And I feel a similar thing when it comes to the Bill Joyner resolution. I mean, the fact that Bill didn't want to be a part of it, there was no convincing that I could do at that point. And so I think it's a very human ending as well. And you have to look at some of the small victories that were achieved along the way, like Kelly not caring about Bill by the end. I mean, if you were to compare that to the original footage of him, almost in tears of anger outside the Planned Parenthood, yelling about Bill, to think that just 3 years later he's being like, I don't care about Bill. I look at that as a victory, but it's tough when you've moved the goalpost to like full recovery, full de-radicalization, complete 180 paradigm shift. You don't look at those wins as being significant, but I would.
definitely. That was shocking enough that he was like, I need to apologize to Bill.
Yeah, it was interesting because that phone call was recorded in the first week of his 30-day treatment, and by the end, his he had totally shifted fronts to talking about marijuana addiction. At the beginning, he was like talking about these breakthroughs and getting treatment for different trauma that he's been through, and by the end, it was just all about weed. And I wonder if that was his choice to pivot or if his treatment provider was incentivized to diagnose him as a cannabis addict. I really don't know too much about the recovery industry.
So from like this place rules, you've kind of focused on radicalization in general, and
Yeah.
you dig way more into that. I'm not entirely like informed on Antifa or the left, but is there like equivalent, like a left equivalent to Kelly? Like,
I think that there's a liberal equivalent to Kelly. I mean, there's probably like some, deranged like liberal who like wakes up every day and like throws darts at a dartboard with Trump's face on it and like worships Anthony Fauci and has like a Black Lives Matter tattoo on her back and like adopts a bunch of kids from the inner cities. That probably exists. But the difference is I don't think that radical liberalism is powered by unmet need collapse or core need collapse rather. I think it's powered by like extreme white guilt and also class guilt, which could come for a variety of reasons. One of those could be like people who grow up wealthy in the suburbs and then they go to like a super expensive social justice oriented college and they learn about things like racism and segregation much later in life without early exposure, and they develop like an extreme guilt complex and they project it on other people. Another one could be like participating in gentrification and like having that guilt of actively pricing millions of people out of their communities and feeling like you have to overcompensate. But I don't think that radical liberalism follows the exact same trajectory as conservatism, because the idea of a conservative in itself is like we need to get back to the old ways. We need to conserve the way that things were before shit went haywire. Whereas liberalism and progressivism is very much oriented toward the future. Like we need to create a utopian society as opposed to regress and go back to a different time. It's always looking at the next chapter. There's also not, if you were to say like Antifa or whatever, if you were to scapegoat like certain fringe leftist groups, that is probably composing like a very small minority of the greater left. Whereas I feel like the MAGA patriots compose a majority of the right. Maybe not everybody like Kelly, but most conservatives are on board with like the majority of MAGA principles, whereas most liberals are not on board with Antifa principles, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Uh, so at some point you kind of made like a pivot, not entirely, but from just like covering the people to then trying to help them. Like from like the Vegas tunnels video, you're trying to get them IDs. You start GoFundMe's. You like participated in the intervention and had a beautiful speech. When
Thanks.
do you think you made that pivot?
I actually did that because I was kind of getting like sick seeing all of the praise that I was receiving. This sounds kind of weird, but like I was being, and this is not to hate on the fans for saying nice things in the comments, but before I pivoted to like taking a more active role in stories, I noticed that I would go film something that was like depressing, and everyone would be like, Andrew, bro, you're such a legend for humanizing these people. Like, thank you so much for like shedding a light and showing that these people are human. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I know damn well that my humanization is not going to impact their situation. Like, what? Did you think they were like a wild animal before? It just bothered me. And so I was like, you know what? I actually want to help these people in the process of making these stories, or at least like in the case of Vegas tunnels, maybe set a model for somebody else to help them. Like, hey, if you want to help someone who's homeless, maybe help get their paperwork sorted out and help them get an ID and actually like apply those principles instead of just being like, what's your story? Like, oh my God, that's so heartbreaking. Okay, on to the next. And then I'm being treated like I'm some kind of like stellar reporter for just like sharing someone's sad story. It's a weird thing that we're at. It's a weird place that we're at generationally of raising awareness being this like righteous motif that everyone gets. Like it's bizarre. Awareness almost always does nothing.
Wow. And that's good that you've been encouraging action and I
Yeah.
feel like you've made a lot of like were those GoFundMe's like successful for like the
Oh
L
yeah,
flowers?
we did the Crit Mag GoFundMe, then we did the GoFundMe for Narcan in San Francisco, the one for refugees in Lebanon, and then we did one recently for that guy named Nicholas that we met at the Free Luigi rally in Manhattan. So that kind of shit makes me feel good. Makes me feel like I'm actually helping people. Not that I need to pat myself on the back, but like just how I feel inside after like doing that is different than I feel after like documenting something tragic for the amusement and pity of Western listeners. I don't know why I said Western, but you know what I mean. Like, just it's a me thing.
Yeah. And do you like know of any people who are like radicalized that have seen the stuff you've made and like maybe not
Well,
necessarily
to be honest with you, like I'm promoting Dear Kelly because I put a lot of time into it, but there's definitely more interesting things to cover out there than the internal psychology of QAnon people. You know what I mean? I've just filmed so much that I'm making something out of it, but like I have a lost language project that I'm doing soon about like, helping preserve endangered languages in the US. There's like a lot of cool shit that I'm doing. So I'm not trying to act like Dear Kelly doesn't matter, but I haven't necessarily been monitoring the reception that much.
So how would you say like you've changed as a director or like filmmaker from America Shits Itself to Dear Kelly?
Well, I mean, I don't think I've necessarily changed that much, but what's different now is that I probably wouldn't go as deep as I did for Dear Kelly again. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I went from not caring that much to caring a lot to now sort of being in a middle ground where I care, but I was so This is off camera. I was so emotionally
Unable to connect with
invested.
your
Everything good? It's all good. I was so emotionally invested in the outcome of Dear Kelly, by not just of the movie, but of Kelly as a person by the end. Off camera, like it became a huge thing in my life. I needed Kelly to transform or something, and I just realized that I shouldn't put that much emotional stock in the outcome of someone that I'm also filming.
I cannot think. I had a question in my head and I completely blanked on it.
Happens to me all the time.
How do you deal with that?
The dilemma of like, what? How do I deal with coming up with questions when I forget them?
Yeah, or just forgetting like what do you do? You
There's
just
nothing you could do, man. You just got to sit there and hopefully, your brain connects the same neural pathways that were just activated. There's no trick. I wish I could tell you you could like, hit yourself on the head a certain way, but it's just that's what you got to do.
yeah. What like do you have any advice for just like aspiring like I'm an aspiring like filmmaker, not necessarily journalist, but documentaries for sure. Do you have any advice? Like
Yeah, just don't be afraid to fail, man. That's the number one thing. Most people who are really talented, they're going to fail their first project or their first 5 or 6 projects, but it's just about execution. Try to get yourself out of the idea stage because where it's comfortable and you can brainstorm and hope for the best and get yourself into the execution stage where you actually complete and release projects and don't let your ego tell you like, oh, I failed, I shouldn't do it again, I'm going to embarrass myself. Keep trying. It's eventually, if you never give up, something will work for you, even if it's when you're old. Anthony Bourdain didn't really succeed till he was like 37. So yeah, just don't be afraid to fail and get yourself out of the idea vortex.
why do you feel you gravitate to like people who are radicalized or at least during these two documentaries? Like
I don't know. I mean, that's a great question. Like, I don't. I mean, I probably seek them out to a certain extent. I mean, I'm not going to act like I'm a perfect person. I mean, if I see someone who's off the deep end, that's an interesting subject matter. I think everyone's interested in eccentric personalities. So probably it's not like I'm looking for crazy people or something, but if I go to an event, left, right, whatever, it can be not political at all. The loudest and most crazy dressed person, wild dressed person is going to be who you want to talk to. I like characters. I always have.
I'm the same. I mean, I have like family who is, into that
Yeah.
QAnon, and it's at birthday parties, it's like the best conversation ever. So,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of people were like, you only pick out crazy people. I'm like, no, I don't. I just am gravitated toward, vibrant personalities and people who have a lot to say.
do you have anything else that you'd like to add in general about the documentary?
No,
Or
I think your questions were very good. I'm stoked to see them. Thank you, bro.
thank you very much.
All right,
Good
brother.
luck with the rest of your endeavors
Try my best.
and iPhone fixing.
Thanks.
All right. Have a great
All
day,
right.
man.
See you, Doug.
All right. All right. See you around.